Hey friends, this is the Miss Wolfie from our half-acre homestead. Well, I was going to can some meatballs, and then I had fresh mushroom. Let's can some meatballs. Here I have approximately 8.5 pounds of extra lean ground meat. Now, I could only get 2 packages from the grocery store, so I took some of my home ground beef, you know, when I buy a roast and I grind it up. So I took some of that out of the freezer. So we got about 8 pounds. Now we want to do the seasonings, right? So I'm going to take, I don't put breadcrumbs in meatballs that I am going to can. Sorry folks, you don't put starches like that in there, okay? So I'm using up the very last of my dehydrated celery and some rosemary and some thyme. You just season whatever you want. These are hot peppers, so I won't be putting in any cayenne. So let's start with that. This is going to, oh wow, is that ever fragrant. This is going to help bind the meat because it's dry ingredients, right? God, that smells so good. I'm going to add about, I don't know, 1/4 cup of garlic. Maybe, yeah, about 1/4 cup of garlic to 1/3 of a cup. How much parsley have I got left here? A couple of tablespoons of dry parsley. And now I'm going to put in some of my home dehydrated onions. I'm going to grind them into powder. About a teaspoon of black peppercorns. And we'll grind those. Careful opening that when you've got hot ingredients in there. It can make you choke really bad. Onion powder and pepper. About a tablespoon or 2 of salt. Now normally I would just can the meatballs by themselves in broth, but mushrooms were on sale. And like somebody mentioned in one of my recent videos, why is there mushrooms in everything? Well, because we love mushrooms. But the truth of the matter is, you don't have to put them in if you don't want to. Okay, so I'm just going to cut up. I've got 4 packages. Well, 3 in a bit. And I save these for starting seeds in. So I recycle them before they even get sent out to recycling. Besides, when I use meatballs, I use them for a couple of things. I make Swedish meatballs, which is a mushroom thing, or I use them in spaghetti, which is also a mushroom thing. So why not just add the mushrooms? Now mushrooms have got to be par cooked before you can them. Why? Or the broth will go nasty. Okay, so you really want to give them a good, 1 second boil, like drop them into boiling water and let them come back up to a boil for 1 minute and then strain. Alrighty, now here is our meat. Now I'm going to wear some gloves just because I've been in the garden and my nails are clean, but not, besides, it's meat. I got 6 eggs over here. Here, let's get you a little closer. I have 6 eggs, 2 of them are mine. It's about right for 8 pounds of meat. And I'm going to tell you folks that, again, do not put starches. Look at the difference between a home-raised, look at the difference in color between a home-raised chicken and a store-bought chicken egg. Look at the difference in color. Can you see that? I should have waited to put gloves on. I hope these shells don't cut the glove. And I wish you could smell this. This is really aromatic. Like I said when I was putting the seasonings in, you do you. I would really love like a sausage meat stirrer, but because this is way too much, would be way too much for my KitchenAid. Well, I could get a bigger KitchenAid, I guess. One of these days. One of these days. Because I don't think I'll stop doing stuff like this until I no longer can. And then by then, I'll just take my camera and life in the nursing home. Right? Now, I'm not just mixing in the eggs. I am mixing in those seasonings and breaking up any frozen together bits of meat. You know what I mean? See, look, I turned that over and look at the amount of stuff that's still on the bottom of the bowl. Look, really, folks, you gotta get right down in there. Alrighty. Our mushrooms are on the boil. Oh, there it is. That's what I'm talking about. Oh. Okay. Thank you, my love. This is a 1.5 tablespoons cookie scoop. I wish I could find a 1 tablespoon one, but we're just going to make them level. And then we're just going to roll them. I'm going to take a little bit off. And it gives me a decent idea. I don't want my meatballs too big because they have to go into jars, right? Folks, these are going into a 425-degree oven for 15 minutes while I start the rest. Here is the first batch out of the oven. And I got another half a tray in the oven. So I'm just going to get them into this bowl. So they'll be easier to dispense into jars. Okay, folks. Now, don't think I'm going to let this go to waste. I have a stock pot on with water in it that I'm going to make the broth with. I'm going to dump this in because it's going to be full of flavor. Okay, so here's what we got. We got a big bowl of meatballs. We got a smaller bowl of cooked mushrooms. This is MSG-free beef broth powder that I get from Bulk Barn. I'm going to be using two kinds of lids. I'm going to be using Tatler as well as regular. And these have been boiled and they're sitting in hot water. These have been washed and are sitting in hot water. This is just water that I've dumped the juice from the cooked meatballs in. And there's our canner. Water, vinegar, rack in the bottom. Let's rock! Okay, first things first is I'm just going to put a spoonful of mushrooms into each jar. Now you don't have to add mushrooms, folks. You don't have to add anything. You can just do meatballs and broth, but I'm making these stretch a little bit farther with some mushrooms. That's all, because the mushrooms were on sale. Now I'm going to do things just a little bit backwards, folks. Now I'm going to add, also to each jar, I'm going to add approximately a teaspoon of my MSG-free beef broth. You don't need to do this. You can do this with water if you want. But this is all about flavor. This could be a meatball soup starter. This could be a starter for Swedish meatballs. You just add a can of mushroom soup and pour it over noodles. This, did I put some in there already? This could go into spaghetti sauce, you know, because all the beef flavor is going to do is enhance the sauce, right? It's going to give it more depth. So don't be afraid. Don't, you know, make it your own. If you want to add some onions and celery or whatever as like a wedding meatball soup starter, you do what you do you. Just remember, what we're canning, when you're canning something that has combinations of ingredients, you always can it at the temperature and the time of the ingredient that needs the most processing. So in this case, it's the meat. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cup of broth in each jar, or the water, broth water. Why? Well, because meatballs are funny, okay? They're bulky, and if you try and debubble them too vigorously, they'll break apart. So we're putting our mushrooms in, and you know, a cup to 3/4 of a cup of broth in, just so it will debubble as we add our meatballs. See how rich that's already looking with that beef broth in there? The broth powder and the meatball foot. And there's seasonings. Those meatballs were well seasoned, folks. So you really, really don't want to throw away the juice, right? Now I'm just going to start filling these bottles, these jars, with our cooked meatballs. In all honesty, you really don't need to debubble at this point because you're doing displacement with your broth. And if you need more water, you add more. But from an inch to the top, okay? And at this point, folks, if you don't want to can your meatballs, you can put these in baggies and freeze them just like that. That's also, you know, this is one of the joys of this recipe. All right, so here's our Tatler lids done. Doing the Tatler lids first is to show you, always, always, always wipe your rim. Now this has been boiled and it's still hot. We're going to put that on there just like that. And we're going to tighten it all the way down as far as we can, and then back a 1/4 turn. That's how you do the Tatler. And into the canner that goes. Now I like to use my clean damp paper towel. I like to use vinegar water when I dip it, because even though there isn't a lot of fat, there is some. Fingertip tight. Always, always wipe it with a clean damp paper towel, preferably one that's been dipped in vinegar water. And into the canner these go. Well, I still have more to do, so it looks like I'm going to have to get my other canner out. Okay, I'm going to have to get out another canner. In here I have approximately approximately 14 pints in this canner. I'm going to put the lid on it. Okay, so on goes the lid, and when this spout starts to vent a steady stream of steam, we will set the timer for 10 minutes. Okay, this is now venting a steady stream of steam, so I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And when that's vented for 10 minutes, we'll be putting a 10-pound weight on it and processing these for 75 minutes. If it was quartz, 90 minutes. Okay, this has been venting a steady stream of steam for 10 minutes. Now I'm going to put my 10-pound weight on there. As soon as that starts, gives us a vigorous jiggle, we'll start timing, and we're going to time these for 75 minutes because they're pints. Pints. If they were quarts, it will be 90 minutes. Now, folks, I forgot to film it jiggling, but you always leave these to cool if you can in the pressure canner. Have to open the canner. Make sure you open it away from yourself. Okay, I got 17 jars, 15 of them in meatballs and mushrooms and 2 3/4 pints. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me if some liquid gets pushed out, is it going to be okay? As long as your seal is down and you can pick up the lid by its rim. Okay, that means it's sealed, it's still good. All right, and if you don't want fat to be pushed out, folks, wipe your rims with 50/50 vinegar water before you put your lids on. This is the Miss Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying, and that's how you can mushrooms and meatballs in broth for quick meal ideas later on in the year. Take care, God bless.